Jai Hind everyone. Myself Dr. Vandana Sharma from Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College. The subject which I am teaching, that subject is Engineering Physics and the code is KAS 101T. The topic which I have started, topic is Modern Physics, and under this Modern Physics, the various topics which we are covering: black body radiation, Bing's law, Stephen's law, Rayleigh-Jean's law, Planck's law. We have already covered all these topics under black body radiation spectrum. Then we have discussed about wave particle duality, where we have discussed that if we are having a moving microscopic particle, then it is always associated with matter wave, which is also known as de Broglie wave. And we have expressed that de Broglie wave or matter wave in terms of different parameters. We have expressed that de Broglie wavelength in terms of momentum, in terms of kinetic energy, in terms of potential difference, or you can say voltage. We have also expressed that de Broglie wavelength in terms of temperature. We have expressed the de Broglie wavelength associated with electron in classical mechanics, that is 12.26 upon under root V in terms of angstrom. We have also expressed this de Broglie's wavelength in relativistic mechanics, when the particle is moving and it is moving with a very high velocity, which is comparable to velocity of light, then we are having a different form of that de Broglie's expression. So we have also represented this de Broglie wavelength or that concept of matter wave in relativistic mechanics. After that, in the last lecture, I have started this concept of wave function, and using that concept of Schrodinger wave function, we have derived the first form of that Schrodinger equation, which is known as time independent Schrodinger equation. So actually, what is the meaning of that? You are having a microscopic particle and it is moving, and according to the hypothesis which was proposed by de Broglie, that moving microscopic particle is associated with a matter wave. And you know, if you want to describe the wave nature, then in mathematics we are having a second order partial differential equation. So Schrodinger in 1926 he generalized the concept of electromagnetic wave equation for these matter waves also. So he proposed wave equation, but he proposed that equation in terms of a new function, and the function which was proposed by Schrodinger, that was denoted by psi, and the function is known as Schrodinger wave function. So this new function came into existence, and the new equation which was proposed by Schrodinger in order to describe that wave nature, that is known as Schrodinger wave equation. And I have explained in my last lecture that this equation that can be expressed in two different forms. Actually, those two different forms, they are obtained from a single equation. They are the form of that single equation, but the only difference is, if the energy of a moving microscopic particle is independent of time, then you are having time independent equation. Whereas if the energy of the particle which is moving, if that energy is depending upon time, then in order to describe the wave nature associated with such type of particle, you are having time dependent equation. So that is the difference. So because of that difference, that Schrodinger equation is of two types. One is known as time independent equation and the other one is known as time dependent equation. In my last lecture, I have already derived this Schrodinger time independent equation. So this was the introduction of that Schrodinger equation which I have already covered. So time independent equation which we have derived. So this equation it was proposed by Schrodinger, and Schrodinger proposed this equation on the basis of electromagnetic wave equation, and here this phi is taken. Phi is a general function and it is a function of x, y, z and t. As we know, in case of electromagnetic wave equation, we are having such type of equations either in terms of E or in terms of H. But in general form, if you want to write or represent a wave equation, then we are having this type of equation. And using this equation, actually he proposed a new function which is known as Schrodinger wave equation, or wave function, sorry. So he proposed this equation, and later on this equation was presented in a form which is known as time independent form. So I have already derived this Schrodinger wave equation, and actually this equation number 10, this is your time independent equation. In this equation, you know this is Laplacian operator. This Laplacian operator del square, it is equal to del square upon del x square plus del square upon del y square. How I am writing this? You should know from your chapter of electromagnetics that del is a vector differential operator, and if you are taking del dot del, then that will be del square, known as Laplacian operator, and the value of that Laplacian operator is actually this. So this is your del square psi. In this case, psi is the wave function which is independent of t. It depends upon x, y and z, plus 2m into E minus V, where this E is the total energy and V is the potential energy. So this factor E minus 1, it represents the kinetic energy. So 2m E minus V into psi upon h cross square equals to 0. So this is your time independent equation. In this equation, psi is independent of t. It depends only upon x, y and z, and you know the significance of each and every term here. Here this h cross is actually h upon 2 pi. And what is your h here? H is your Planck's constant, right? So this is your time independent equation, and if you are having a free particle for which you are writing this equation, then for a free particle this potential energy will be 0, and the equation will take this particular form. So you have to remember that this is your time independent equation. This equation is nothing, it is a second order partial differential equation. It will represent the wave nature associated with the moving microscopic particle. The only difference is here psi is independent of t, right? And if you want to represent this equation in one dimension, then instead of all these operators, you will have only one operator along which the particle is moving, right? So we have already discussed all these parameters there. Now today I am going to derive the time, I am going to write this equation in time dependent form, right? So in order to represent this equation in time dependent form, again we are going to use our time independent equation. And as I have already mentioned in my last lecture that time independent and time dependent, these equations are nothing new, but they are the form of a single equation. Means from a single equation you can get time independent as well as time dependent form. So what I am going to do here, I am going to derive this time dependent form using time independent equation. So what we have here, we are having this wave function psi, which is a function of x, y, z and t, and the psi is written as a product of two functions, where the first one is represented by psi naught, which is independent of t. It depends only upon x, y and z, and the second one is time dependent function. And you know this time dependent function, as I have mentioned, that this time dependent function, that will be a periodic function, and the oscillating behavior, that wave nature, that will be described with the help of this, and it will be either of this particular form, e raised to power I omega t, or you can take e raised to power minus I omega t. You can consider any of these forms. So here this function f, which depends upon t, that is taken as e raised to power minus I omega t. So what you have here, you have psi as psi naught into e raised to power minus I omega t. What is the difference between the psi on left hand side and the psi on right hand side? The psi which is there on left hand side, that depends upon x, y, z and t, and the psi which is there on the right hand side, that psi is independent of t, it depends only upon x, y, z. So now the next step is, we are going to differentiate this equation number 2 with respect to t. So if you will differentiate it with respect to t, then the psi naught will remain constant, so that will remain as it is. And you know the derivative of exponential is exponential, but you are differentiating with respect to t, so you are getting this minus I omega e raised to power minus I omega t as the derivative. So del psi by del t is psi naught minus I as it is, and you know this omega is angular frequency, which can be written as 2 pi times linear frequency e raised to power minus I omega t as it is. And you know this entire term, that is psi naught into e, this total term is psi, so we are replacing this with psi. So your del psi by del t is minus 2 pi I nu into psi. So what is the next step? Next step is this. Del psi by del t is minus 2 pi I as it is, and you know that E is equal to h nu. So what we are going to do? We are going to replace this nu with E by h. So that is done over there. 2 pi E by h into psi. And you know what is h upon 2 pi? That we have already explained, that h upon 2 pi is known as h cross. So we have replaced that h upon 2 pi with h cross. So that del psi by del t, that derivative of psi with respect to t, that becomes minus I E upon h cross into psi. So from this particular term, we are going to find the value of E psi. So E psi will remain on one side, and you are going to transfer all other terms on the other side. So E psi is your, that will be minus, E psi is actually minus h cross upon I into del psi by del t. This is the term which you will get after transferring all other terms except E psi on other side. So you know what is the value of 1 upon I? 1 upon I is minus I. So when you are replacing 1 upon I with minus I, then minus minus will become plus, and this term will give you I h cross del psi by del t. So what you are getting? Actually what we have done, we are having wave function psi, which is a function of x, y, z and t. So we have divided that particular wave function as a product of two functions, where the first one that depends upon x, y and z, and the second one is f that depends upon time. And that time dependent function, that is either of the form e raised to power I omega t or e raised to power minus I omega t. Now you are going to differentiate that psi with respect to t. After differentiating psi with respect to t, you will get a particular term. In that term you have angular frequency, replace it with linear frequency, and replace that term of linear frequency with E by h, right? And after this you are getting del psi by del t is minus I E upon h cross psi, and you know 1 upon I is minus I. So finally you are getting E psi as I h cross del psi by del t. So you are getting equation number 3 here. Now what you have to do? You have to substitute this equation number 3 in your Schrodinger time independent equation. So you know what is this? This is your time independent equation. Del square psi plus 2m upon h cross square. It is E minus V into psi. So I am writing that equation here. Del square psi, which we have already derived, del square psi plus 2m upon h cross square E minus V into psi is equal to 0. This is your time independent equation. So what we are going to do here? We are going to replace this E psi with equation number 3. So del square psi plus 2m upon h cross square I h cross del psi by del t minus V psi. This term will remain as it is, equals to 0. So del square psi is equal to, we are transferring this term to the right hand side. Del square psi is equal to minus 2m upon h cross square I h cross del psi by del t minus V psi. So just multiply this entire term with minus h cross square upon 2m. You are getting minus h cross square upon 2m del square psi plus V psi is equal to I h cross del psi by del t. Now you can see in this equation, if you will simplify this equation, again this is a second order partial differential equation. If you will simplify this equation, you will get the value of wave function psi. But in that case, this wave function psi, that will be a function of x, y, z and t. If you will simplify this equation, you will get the wave function, and that wave function will be a function of x, y, z and t. So this particular equation, this is known as your time dependent Schrodinger wave equation in 3 dimension. I hope this is clear. So what you have done, you have started from your time independent equation, and where you have reached at time dependent form. Clear? So this is your time dependent equation in 3 dimension. If you want to represent this equation in 1 dimension, then what will be the difference? In 1 dimension, the only difference is, give me 1 minute. In 1 dimension, if you want to represent this equation in 1 dimension, then the difference is, this equation will be minus h cross square upon 2m del square psi upon del x square plus V psi is equal to I h cross del psi by del t. That is the difference. Instead of that Laplacian operator, you will get this del square psi upon del x square, and in this case the movement of particle is only along x-axis. And if you will simplify this equation, you will get the wave function, and that wave function will be a function of x and t. Whereas in this equation, if you will simplify it, you will get the wave function which will be a function of x, y, z as well as t. So this is in 3 dimension, whereas this equation is in 1 dimension. So that is the difference. So now you are having 2 equations. Basically those 2 equations are derived from the same general Schrodinger wave equation. So those equations are nothing new, but they are the form of same Schrodinger equation, but the difference is, if you are having a microscopic particle and if the energy of that particle is independent of time, you will apply time independent equation, whereas if the energy of particle depends upon time, you will apply time dependent equation. So that is the only difference. So these 2 equations, they are wonderful equations in quantum mechanics, because if you want to find the value of any parameter related to that moving microscopic particle, then you will use these Schrodinger equation. And how that is possible, let me explain that. So for this, what I am going to do here, I am going to take the help of this. So if you can see this particular term, E psi is equal to I h cross del psi by del t. If you will see this equation, then there is a very interesting fact. Just give me 1 minute. On left hand side you have this E psi, and on the right hand side you are having this term. So the term which I have highlighted here on right hand side, you are having I h cross, and you know I is a constant, h cross is h upon 2 pi, which is again a constant, and you also know what is del by del t. Del by del t is an operator, and if that operator is multiplied with a constant, again this will remain as an operator, and you know that operator is applied over psi, and this is equal to E psi. This is from equation number 3. So if you will carefully see these 2 terms, then this I h cross del upon del t, that is comparable to E. It means this I h cross del upon del t, that is your operator, and that operator is energy operator, because this term is equivalent to this. So since it is an operator here, so this operator is actually energy operator. The meaning of this is, if you want to calculate the energy of that system for which you are applying this Schrodinger equation, then energy can be calculated just by taking the derivative of wave function of that particle with respect to time and multiply that with I h cross, you will get the energy. So it means if you want to get the information about that microscopic particle with which that matter wave is associated, then simply use that wave function. So that is the application, that is the beauty of this wave function, right? So these are your Schrodinger equations. Now in this slide we will try to understand that what is the significance of Schrodinger wave equation. So up to now we have seen that you are having a mathematical function in quantum mechanics, you are having this wave function, Schrodinger wave function psi in modern physics, which is giving you the information related to that microscopic system or that moving microscopic particle. Now actually what is the significance of that wave function? So let me explain the significance. The variable quantities which characterize de Broglie matter wave is called a wave function psi. So psi is that function which will explain the wave nature associated with the moving microscopic particle. Second point is the wave function represents the variation in matter wave. Now after simplifying a second order partial differential equation, if you are getting that wave function is of this particular form a sine, you are having this k here. So if you are getting the wave function in this particular form, it means you are getting a sinusoidal wave. And how and what is a there? A is representing the amplitude of that wave function. Means when the particle is moving, then what type of wave nature is associated with that moving microscopic particle, that will be explained with the help of wave function. Now the third point is it connects the particle wave nature and its associated wave nature. So basically this wave function, that is a correlation between particle and wave nature. Next point is particle density is proportional to psi square. So what is the meaning of it? The time when Schrodinger proposed this wave function psi, then that wave function that was only in terms of a mathematical function, means at that time the meaning of wave function was not known. It was known that there is some function known as Schrodinger wave function, and in terms of that function we can represent the wave nature, we can express a second order partial differential equation, and that equation is going to represent the wave nature. And this wave function psi, that is a complex mathematical function, and itself that function is not having any meaning. But later on, the interpretation or the physical significance, different scientists, they tried to give the significance of that wave function. So it was found that wave function itself is meaningless, but when you are multiplying the wave function with its complex conjugate, then that product of psi and psi star, that will represents the probability of finding the particle. Means you are having a particle, that particle is moving, it is associated with wave nature. But what is the probability of finding the particle within that wave nature? That will be given by this product of psi and psi star. Right? What is the meaning of this? Suppose this room, that is a wave packet in which the particle is present. So that wave packet is associated with the moving microscopic particle. So within the wave packet, what is the probability of finding the particle? That can be calculated with the help of the psi and psi star. Let me give you one example. Suppose you are having this box. You are having this box here, and I am saying that a particle, a microscopic particle, that is confined in this box. So if I am saying that particle is present within the box, then and that particle is a microscopic particle, then the probability of finding that particle within this box at any point, that will be given by the product of wave function and its complex conjugate. Means when you are multiplying psi with its complex conjugate, then it represents the probability of finding a particle. So that is the significance of wave function. Psi into psi star, which is written over here psi square, but that is possible only if psi is real. If it is complex, then you have to see that how that psi and psi star will behave. So it gives the probability of finding the particle in the states, in a particular state. The probability of finding a particle in volume dV is dx, volume is dx into dy into dz, is given by psi square dx dy dz. Right? So what is the significance of wave function? Itself it is meaningless. When it is multiplied with its complex conjugate, it is going to represent the probability of finding the particle. Right? And the total probability of finding the particle, again I am taking the same example. If I am saying the particle is present within this box, it means I am sure about this, that particle is somewhere within this box. So if you want to calculate the total probability of finding the particle, then you know the total probability of finding the particle within the box is 100%. So that total probability, that is given by this equation, this mathematical expression psi square dx dy dz. Psi square represents the probability, and since you are saying the total probability, so these three integral operators, they are the integrations along the three directions. So psi square, total probability is psi square, and you are integrating with respect to x, y, z equals to 1. The meaning of this is, again I am taking same example. Suppose the width of the box along x-axis is A, along y-axis is B, and along z-axis is C. So when you are taking the total probability of finding the particle within this box, then that will be equal to 0 to A, 0 to B, 0 to C, psi star into psi dx dy dz is equal to 1. Means the total probability of finding the particle within this box, that is equal to 1. And you know that along x-axis the boundaries are from 0 to A, along y-axis the boundaries are from 0 to B, and along z-axis boundaries are from 0 to C. So within those boundaries you have to integrate it. Right? So this particular condition which is represented over here, this condition is known as normalization condition, and if the wave function satisfy this condition, then the wave function is known as normalized wave function. Right? So I hope the significance of Schrodinger wave function is now clear. where wave function psi itself is meaningless. But when you are multiplying wave function with its complex conjugate, then it is going to represent the probability of finding the particle. And one more interesting point is there, that within the boundaries, if you are aware that particle is present within this particular box, then within those boundaries the total probability of finding the particle is always 100%, and that 100% is represented as 1. So this represents the total probability of finding the particle, and that total probability is 1, and if wave function satisfies this condition, then this wave function is said to be normalized wave function, right? So this is the significance of wave function. Now the nature of wave function. So I am going to explain all these parameters one by one. The first one is, your wave function must be finite everywhere. So let me explain the meaning of this, that what is the meaning of being finite everywhere. So what you have, from where you have started from here, that you are having a particle, a microscopic particle, and that particle is moving, right? Then this particle is associated with wave nature, right? And actually the matter wave which was proposed by de Broglie, if you will calculate the velocity of that matter wave, which is known as phase velocity, then that velocity is very, very large. It is greater than velocity of light. It is c square upon v, c square upon v. So that is not possible. So later on it was proposed that instead of a single matter wave, instead of this single matter wave, whenever a moving microscopic particle is there, it is associated with a wave packet. So you are having this type of a region, and within this region there will be constructive interference of all the components. This is known as wave packet. Now the beauty of this wave packet is that moving microscopic particle, your particle is moving, so that moving particle is somewhere within this box, within this wave packet. It means the probability of finding the particle within the wave packet is 100%, right? So the first point which is related to this wave function is that the wave function must be finite everywhere. Now you know that your particle is present somewhere within this wave packet. It means the value of wave function that must be finite within this wave packet, because particle is present within that wave packet. It means the value of wave function cannot be infinite within that wave packet, because if that will be infinite, then you know the probability of finding the particle is also infinite, which is not possible, because you know the particle is present within the wave packet, and within the wave packet the probability of finding the particle is also finite. So that is the reason the wave function must be finite everywhere. You know that wave function that is applicable for the particle only within wave function that is applicable for the particle only within this wave packet. So within this wave packet the value of wave function must be finite everywhere. So that is the first point. So value of wave function must be finite everywhere. Just give me 1 minute. So this is the first point. Second point is, the wave function must be a single valued function. Again, if wave function is having more than one value, if within this wave packet your wave function, if that can take more than one value, then the probability of finding the particle, which is given by the product of wave function and its conjugate, then that probability of finding the particle within the wave packet will be having more than one value at a single point. If the wave function is having more than one value at a single point, then there will be more than one probability of finding the particle at the same point, which is not possible. At one point there can be only one probability of finding the particle. It means the wave function must be a single valued function. So that is the second condition. The third one is, it must be continuous. So that is again your wave function which is associated with moving microscopic particle. That wave function must be continuous. Continuous means over the boundaries the continuity should not break. That wave function should be continuous. So you can understand it like this. Suppose you are having a microscopic particle which is approaching this box from this particular side, and if the energy of that particle is less than this barrier, then the particle cannot cross this barrier and it can never reach into this particular region. So classically, the particle cannot cross this barrier and it cannot present in this third region. Suppose this is the first region, this one is the second, and this one is the third. So classically it is not feasible for the particle if it is having energy less than this barrier, but quantum mechanically, since particle is associated with wave nature, so there is a possibility that particle can tunnel through this barrier and it can reach into this particular region. So now the meaning of continuity, at this point is here. When the particle is approaching this barrier, then over this point, when you are having this boundary, over this boundary, the wave function should have same value. Suppose I am saying it is x equal to a. So at this point, the wave function of this region as well as the wave function of this region should have same value. So if the wave function in this region is psi 1 and if the wave function in this region is psi 2, then at this point over the boundary, psi 1 must be equal to psi 2. And if the wave function in this region is psi 3 and let this point is x equal to 2a, then over this point the value of wave function psi 2 must be equal to psi 3, means the continuity should not break. Over the boundaries, the wave function will have same value and its first derivative will also exist. So that is the meaning of continuity. And the last point which is associated with the wave function, that point suggests that wave function must be a normalizable function. So as I mentioned in the last slide, normalization means since the particle definitely exists within this wave packet, so the total probability of finding the particle, that should be 100%, or in terms of 0 and 1, you know the total probability, if it is 100, you can write it as 1. It means within the limits, that total probability of finding the particle must be 1, that wave function must be normalizable, that will satisfy this normalization condition. I am writing that normalization condition here, psi star into psi and dx, dy, dz is equal to 1. This is known as your normalization condition, and over these integrals you have to apply the limits. So I am writing here minus infinite, plus infinite, here minus infinite, plus infinite, minus infinite, plus infinite. Now this minus infinite and plus infinite doesn't mean infinite. Minus infinite, that indicates the lower limit along x-axis, plus infinite, that represents the upper limit along x-axis. This minus infinite represents the lower limit along y-axis, upper limit along y-axis, lower limit along z-axis, upper limit along x-axis. So as I have shown you that particular box, in that box if a is the breadth along x-axis, b along y-axis and c along z-axis, then the limits will be 0 to a, 0 to b, 0 to c, psi star, psi, dx, dy, dz. So your wave function must be a normalizable function. So these are the conditions which must be fulfilled by wave function. What are the conditions? The first condition is wave function must be finite everywhere. So if it is infinite, it means the probability of finding the particle is also infinite. So that is not correct. The probability of finding the particles within the wave packet is always finite. So wave function cannot take infinite value, that must be finite everywhere. Second one is wave function must be a single valued function. If it is having more than one value, then at a single point there will be more than one probability of finding the particle. And wave function must be continuous, means over the boundaries the continuity should not break. The wave function will take same values at the boundaries, and the first derivative also exists, and the last point is the wave function must be normalizable function. So this is your Schrodinger wave function, its significance and the nature of wave function, and I have already explained about Schrodinger equations. So lastly I am representing those Schrodinger equations once again. Sorry, give me 1 minute. So what are your Schrodinger equations? First equation, which is your time independent equation, that equation is del square psi upon plus 2m upon h cross square E minus V psi equals to 0. This is your time independent equation. And the second one, which is your time dependent, that is I h cross del psi by del t equals to minus h cross square upon 2m del square psi plus v psi. Now, depending upon the situation, if you have a case where you have microscopic particle and if its energy is independent of time, then you are going to apply time independent equation, that first equation. And if you are having a particle where the energy depends upon time, then you are going to apply this time dependent equation. So, how these equations they will be applied in practically, how these equations will be applied over a moving microscopic particle, that we will discuss in the application of Schrodinger equation. And there is one application mentioned in your syllabus, which is a particle confined in a one dimensional infinite potential well. So, we have to find here that if a particle is confined in an infinite potential well, and if that particle is microscopic particle and if it is moving, then it will be associated with wave nature. So, when that particle is moving and confined within that box, then how it is going to behave? What is the nature of that matter wave which is associated with the particle, and what type of nature of that matter wave is, if it is it a sinusoidal wave or a cosine wave, or which form it is taking, and what are the possible energies which that particle can have within that box. So, that we will try to find with the help of Schrodinger equations. So, we will discuss it in our next lecture. So, that is all for today. Thank you so much.